There's countless different characters in boxing. Combat sports can attract some strange, weird, unlikable, and very likeable people at the same time. And for that reason, I've gathered a list of boxers, retired and unretired, and I'm going to rank them on this criteria. This criteria is almost entirely based off outside of the ring. This has no reflection of how good they are as boxers or how entertaining their fights are. It's simply just how would they be if you met them in real life. I think the criteria explain themselves perfectly, so we're going to get straight into it with the top of the pile, Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk is a lot of people's go-to for most likeable boxer. Not only is he the best boxer in the world, he takes so many risks outside the ring. Almost all of his major fights have taken place in enemy territory. His first title fight versus Krzysztof Kowalski was in Poland. He took on Maris Predis in Latvia. He took on Murat Gassiev in Russia. He took on Derek Chisora, Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois in the UK. He's also just a funny, likeable guy. I can't think of anything to say against him. And for that reason, Usyk goes in the top. Then we're going to go all the way to the bad person tier with Floyd Money Mayweather. Floyd is maybe the most hated boxer of all time, and it's for good reason as well. He's a very annoying person. He's disrespectful to opponents before and after the fight. In every interview he does, he talks about himself and no one else. He's had a domestic battery charge against him as well. He's had a negative impact on the sport as well with how much he emphasises being undefeated. He's close to being in the no redeeming qualities tier, but the only thing that I can say about him that's positive is he's a really good salesman. He's a great villain. I think no one in combat sports has done a better job of selling themselves as a heel compared to Floyd. He could still do 1 million pay-per-views in retirement, so he was an entertaining character to have in the sport at one point, so he doesn't go in the very bottom. Moving up to the weirdo tier, we have Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney gets a bit of a bad rap from fans sometimes. I think there's much less likeable people in the sport compared to Haney. I get that he's boring and he's got a massive nose, but outside the ring he comes across as more of a weirdo than a bad person. It's like he's always trying to play this character of being a gangster and a villain, pushing Lomachenko at the weigh-ins, talking like he's going to break someone's face in the lead up to a fight, but then goes out and jabs and moves for 12 rounds. He's a weird guy, but one thing we do have to give him credit for is some of the risks he's taken so far. He fought for Undisputed at the age of 23. He'd never actually had to face Lomachenko. There was no obligation for him to do that. It was a fight he chose to take at that age. Unlike a certain someone who said they were too young to face Lomachenko, when he was the same age that Haney was when he fought Loma. We'll get to him in a minute. Then Haney takes on Regis Prograis in a higher weight class. That was considered quite a risky fight at the time. Then obviously loses to Ryan, faces Jose Ramirez. Despite the weird performance he put on versus Ramirez, he's about to move up to 147 and take on a really dangerous young champion in Brian Norman Jr., who's on a really good form at the moment. Norman is a massive, strong welterweight who just destroyed Jin Sasaki. Haney looked at that and thought, I'm going to fight him. So I think we have to respect him for that. Moving on down to the annoying tier, we have Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury's name recognition has not been proportional to the amount of work he's done in the ring. I think for a long time he's been one of the biggest snake oil salesmen in the sport. If you look through his legacy, he did dethrone the lineal heavyweight champion Vladimir Klitschko in a great win. He didn't want the rematch, so he disappeared for 2 years. If you actually count the title wins he has Vladimir Klitschko, Deontay Wilder in the rematch, Wilder again, Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora, Francis Ngannou, and that's it. He's only got 6 World Championship wins in his entire career. 2 of them are the same person, 2 of them are Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora. Another is a UFC fighter who just started boxing. The reason I bring this up, even though I said I'm not going to talk about people inside the ring, is because Fury has a massive ego and he talks about his own career as if it's the best ever. He's been very dismissive of other boxers' legacies, even though he can poke holes in his. But I think the main reason I don't like Tyson Fury is the BS he does with negotiations in between fights, the fake retirements, the fake deadlines he sets on people. I think there's a decent chance he never would have fought Usyk if Riyadh season never came about. Before Riyadh season, he was taking on Derek Chisora for no reason, basically talking about anyone that wasn't Usyk. Then Riyadh season comes about and he's willing to face him, loses twice clearly and complains about being robbed both times. But once again, similar to Floyd, he's a really, really good salesman. He's been another funny character to have in boxing. He's put on some great fights in his career. The first Usyk fight, the third Wilder fight, great fights. But he is annoying for the reasons mentioned earlier. Moving on, our next addition to the list is Shakur Stevenson, who's going to go in the same tier as Tyson Fury. Now, I do find it understandable to be a bit defensive about your career. I understand that almost all of us watching and making comments about Shakur Stevenson are all spectators. We aren't real boxers. We don't get in there and risk our lives on a daily basis. But it's also another thing where that's all you do is argue with people online. I feel like Shakur can't just be happy with a win. He has to make it about the fans and how the fans are going to complain about his opponent or his fighting style or how he didn't get the knockout. You've won the fight, you've made about 6-7 figures, accept it. What the fans say should not be relevant to you. But regardless, he's on Twitter arguing every single day, it seems. If Shakur's watching this, lighten up a bit. Enjoy your wins, you're winning the fights. Don't worry about what the fans say and don't make excuses every time you have a boring fight. You're going to have boring fights, you're Shakur Stevenson. Anyway, that's going to take us to Mike Tyson. I've put Mike in the boring tier and I think most of you know what I mean when I say this. Some of you may remember the podcast Mike Tyson had at one point. Mike Tyson was supposed to be the host of his own podcast, but he's not really. It was always the co-host who'd be doing the talking and Mike would just be sitting there eating mushrooms. Mike would give some occasional wisdom like, when you back them, man, it's hard, man. When you back them, you're all alone in there, man. It's hard, man. And all the comments would be talking about how wise and philosophical Mike is. His brain is fried by mushrooms at this point. I know he's a legend and everything, but that's the way it is, really. Moving on to the alrights here, we have Terence Bud Crawford. There was a period of time in Terence Crawford's career where he did have a bit of the Shakur Stevenson syndrome, always arguing on Twitter like he's always got something to prove, calling Bob Arum racist for some reason. But I think since he's actually proved it and he's actually made it in his career, I think beating Errol Spence took a massive chip off his shoulder and now he's a bit more chilled out now. I think the Spence win was sort of the end goal for Crawford and now the Canelo fight's a bit of a side quest. Anyway, Crawford's alright now. I don't love him, but I don't dislike him either. Moving on down to boring, we have Canelo Alvarez. Canelo, to me, has always seemed like a bit of a snide person. A bit smug, as if he looks down on people a lot. The way he treats boxing, it's like it's a 9-to-5 job. So he's never really in a good mood when he talks about it. And also, the entire time he was in the same division as David Benavidez, he never really entertained the fight at all. There's never really been a glimmer of hope about making the fight for Canelo. He sort of makes excuses instead of addressing the fight directly. There's not much to talk about with Canelo as a person. I'm going to put him in the boring tier. Moving on all the way down to the no redeeming qualities tier, we have Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, I've got a lot of things to say about Tank Davis, and it spans from the very beginning of his career. Now, some of you may remember some of his fights before being champion. A lot of the times he'd get a knockout and start taunting his opponents to their faces as they're on the ground, knowing full well these are knockover opponents he's supposed to beat and knock out in the first 2 rounds. I'm okay with taunting in the ring, like what Ben Whittaker does, I'm fine with it. But when you're rubbing it in your opponent's face after you've won, like, ha, I beat you even though I'm supposed to beat you, shut up, just accept the win, you fucking idiot. Then he beats Pedraza, becomes champion, then misses weight and loses his title. Around 2020, he gets charged with domestic battery. This is around the same time a video comes out of him grabbing his ex-girlfriend's throat. Later that year, he crashes his car, which had a pregnant woman at the scene. He gets out of his car, runs away, goes home and gets arrested the next day. He was then arrested twice on 2 separate occasions in the same month for domestic battery. Those charges would be dropped, but they follow a pattern. The woman in question chose not to press charges, but when police arrived at the scene, they reported a suffered small abrasion on the inside of her upper lip on the right side of her mouth. Tank then gets arrested once again a few weeks ago for the same thing. At what point do we decide he needs to spend more than a few days in jail? He's a dangerous person to the people around him. If you're a world level elite championship boxer, you should have no reason to raise your hands to a woman. There is almost no situation where you could be in any potential danger whatsoever. And that's not even talking about his boxing career. He's been in the title picture since 2017 when he first won his world title. It's been 8 years, he's almost 30, and he's still not really taken a real dangerous fight. He took one fight he could maybe consider a big risk in Ryan Garcia, and even then he put on a massive rehydration clause for the fight. Every time the idea of Tank fighting at 140 comes up, he starts talking about how small he is and how it's not his weight class. He was perfectly fine versus Mario Barrios. He's just really short and he doesn't want to take any risks. Not only that, just as a person, Tank Davis is a massive child. You've seen his Twitter. He can't speak properly in interviews. He can't type properly on Twitter. He's disrespectful to every single person in boxing, it seems. A YouTuber called Naji from Cigar Talk reached out for an interview recently. Tank responded by saying F you and left it there. I'm not even sure why. Tank is a cunt. I don't like him at all and he belongs down there. Moving on up to annoying tier, we have Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia has had a really weird trajectory in terms of his personality. He started off as a bit of an influencer, then he became a bit more of a humble, straight-up boxer. Up to the Oscar Duarte fight, then afterwards he just completely loses his head, becomes a complete nutcase, a weirdo. I still remember the social media before the Devin Haney fight. I found it really funny at first, to be honest, but then he became a bit too edgy, a bit too trying too hard. Now he's sort of back to normal, I don't know what to think anymore. I'm just going to put him in annoying, I don't know where else to put him. Speaking of weirdos, our next guy is going to be Timo Lopez. I think Ryan Garcia was trying his best to be a nutcase. Timo Lopez is an actual nutcase. If you look inside Tio's brain, there might actually be a monkey with a pair of symbols inside his head instead of a brain. He sent a watermelon and bananas to Keyshawn Davis's hotel room. Said the N-word hard R many times. He wore a gimp mask at his last press conference for some reason. He is a massive head case. Moving on back up to the top of the list, we have Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is just one of the boys, one of the fellas. If you saw him at the pub, you'd buy him a drink. Most likely he can afford it anyway, but still, he can sing as well. What's not to love? Moving on a bit further down to the weirdo tier, we have Anthony Joshua. I think if you've seen enough of Anthony Joshua, you'd know exactly why he's in that tier. You listen to him speak and you can never really tell if it's really him speaking.
Coming for them belts, boy. You're going to see the raft of the new champ. Different energy, different spirit. Coming to win. I tried to learn boxing, stick and move. Isolating the sweet science of the sport, doctrinating my style. But we're going back to the raw, rugged streets. That's where I belong. I never followed no athletes growing up, no movie stars. I followed the hustlers, the Rayful Edmonds, the Jeff Ports, the Nicky Barnes, the Big Meaches, the Larry Hoovers. You understand me? They're the people that gave me the inspiration, the ones that came up from the streets to the top of the world, the empires, the bangers, the hustlers.
He is just a bit of a strange geezer. Sticking to the weirdo tier, we have Deontay Wilder. I think compared to AJ, Wilder is a lot more openly of an oddball. He's just a zany guy, he's a bit peculiar. He's an odd fella. Moving on down to the boring tier, we have Daniel Dubois. If anyone's seen the video I did a couple weeks ago, The Strange Psychology of Daniel Dubois, it should immediately explain the way he is. I can imagine asking Daniel what his favourite food is, what his favourite film is, what his favourite TV show is, what his favourite song is, and he'd just be like, I don't know. It's like all he knows how to do is train and box, which is a bit sad to think about really. Moving on a bit further down to the annoying tier, we have Jake Paul. Now obviously I'm going to get people in the comments saying, why is Jake Paul on this, he's not a boxer. But if I don't put Jake Paul on the list, I'm going to get people saying, where's Jake Paul on the list, where would he be? So I'm going to put him on there anyway, it gives me more views. Now my take on Jake Paul, right, is that if you don't like him in boxing, if you don't like his presence, you don't like him as a person. If you don't like any of those things, but you still talk about Jake Paul, you still keep him relevant, that sort of thing is exactly why Jake Paul has been allowed to have the presence that he does. Me personally, I'm not going to take him seriously as a professional boxer until he faces a real contender in his own division. He did that once when he faced Tommy Fury and lost in the process. I don't really care about him taking on old MMA fighters. It's a circus fight anyway, you shouldn't really care about it. The Mike Tyson fight was a circus as well, and I don't think it was rigged either. Mike Tyson was 58 years old. How many times have you seen a 58-year-old man win a professional boxing match? You haven't. But because he posts some videos of himself on the pads, you think he's going to win? You are silly. The only thing I genuinely don't like about Jake Paul and his career is how he's been trying to get these mega fights versus actual competitive top 10 boxers in their divisions. Like the Tank Davis fight that was supposed to happen, the Anthony Joshua fight that was supposed to happen. So many boxers dedicate their lives since they were kids to boxing to try and get their shot against a guy like Tank Davis and a guy like Anthony Joshua. Let's take Ajit Kabayel for example. Kabayel has been in the top 10 at heavyweight since 2019. So 6 straight years he's remained undefeated in the top 10 of his division, taking risky fights like Makhmudov when he was undefeated, Frank Sanchez when he was undefeated, Zhilei Zhang. But Team Joshua is more open to a Jake Paul fight than that. They've never even whispered Ajit Kabayel's name in the past few years. But to be honest, that's more of an issue with boxing itself rather than Jake Paul. Either way, I'm just going to put Jake Paul in the annoying tier. Moving back up to the top, we have Dmitry Bivol. Dmitry Bivol, once again, just seems like one of the boys. If he was your co-worker and he was sat next to you, you'd be fine with it. I know some people are going to bring up the ex-wife thing, complaining like, why did I put Tank Davis in the bottom but Bivol at the top if they both beat their wives? If you've followed the chronicles of Dmitry Bivol's ex-wife, she is a nutcase, an absolute head case. I don't trust a single word that comes out of her mouth. She's genuinely batshit crazy. Anyway, Bivol, like I said, is one of the boys. Anyway, back down to annoying tier, we have Conor Benn. The hate for Conor Benn has gone down a bit because he did just lose to Eubank Jr. But imagine if he beat Eubank Jr., he'd be so insufferable. He's a steroid cheat, he acts like he's from the hood, like he's from the streets, as if his dad isn't a millionaire. He's an annoying bloke and I don't like him. Speaking of Conor Benn, we move on to Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. is on the verge of being in the weirdo tier. I feel like if you saw him in a pub and you got to speaking to him, he wouldn't stop speaking, he'd go on an extended monologue, talking about what it's like to be booed when you walk out in the ring. He'd say a lot but also nothing at the same time. He's alright though, there's nothing really dislikable about him. Moving on down to the annoying tier, we have David Benavidez. I feel like David Benavidez is always just annoyed about something. I remember in the build-up when he fought Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is one of the most inoffensive people in boxing. Plant was up there talking about how he's blessed to be here and he's ready for Saturday night. And then David was just in the background going, man, you trash, man. I'm going to beat your ass. You can't be 26 years old and act that way. And that's going to take us once again in the annoying tier to Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor for a long time has just been a bit of a dickhead. No matter how inoffensive his opponents are, Jose Ramirez, Jack Catterall, Regis Prograis, he somehow finds a way to be a dickhead to them. And all he does now since he's retired is talk about how the vaccines are going to kill people. If you look at his Instagram, anything conspiracy theory wise he sees online, he will believe it and post it. He's not the smartest guy, he goes in the annoying tier. Moving on up to alright, we have Rolly Romero. I feel like most people have come around to Rolly Romero. He was a bit of a space cadet when he first came along, when he first fought Tank Davis, but recently he's actually been quite funny. You have to appreciate Rolly for what he is, and that's going to take us all the way back down to the bottom with Edgar Berlanga. Edgar Berlanga is one of those guys who talks trash to everyone, but he's not really funny either. Like if it's Tyson Fury, Rolly Romero, Chris Eubank Jr., there's a bit of humour to what they're saying about people. Edgar Berlanga isn't even funny, he's just being a dickhead. He comes across like he's still in high school. Even now that he got destroyed by Hamza Shiraz, he started to make excuses saying that Shiraz loaded his gloves. Hopefully someone makes Berlanga face Christian and Billy so he can disappear. Moving on all the way up to the top, we have Virgil Ortiz Jr. Virgil Ortiz Jr. is literally just a guy, he's like a normal bloke. He plays a bit of guitar as well, there's nothing to dislike about him. Moving on down to boring tier, we have Jaron Boots Ennis. I don't know about you, but I get the feeling that Boots Ennis spends all his time in the gym. I don't think he even watches boxing, I think he just trains. Not much to say about him. Moving on, we have Artabetsubiev. Once again, same with Bivol. He's one of the boys, one of the lads. I would buy him some orange juice. Down to weirdo tier, we have Kenshiro Taraji. I don't know if any of you have seen Taraji's Instagram. All he really does is post photos of his cats or videos of brain rot. He's 33, but you'd think he's 21. Moving on down to the bad person tier, we have Adrian Broner. I feel like Adrian Broner has been the subject of about 200 when trash talking goes wrong compilations. He was talking so much in the lead up versus Maidana, tries humping Maidana in the ring for some reason, then gets dropped. Maidana humps him back and Broner starts complaining about it. Then as soon as the fight's over, he runs away from the ring. Gives Manny Pacquiao zero credit for beating him. Says he was robbed in an Now Famous interview. He's a weird guy and I don't like him. Moving on up to the top, we have Brian Norman Jr. What I've learned while making this video is there's not much to say about guys in the top tier. They're just sound guys. You'd get on with Brian Norman Jr. Moving on down to bad person, we have Luis Neri. The main justification behind this is he is a blatant steroid cheat, but he's also just disrespectful in general. I don't like him. But the guy who beat him recently is on the top of the list. Now yeah, Inoue. Inoue is indeed one of the boys, one of the fellas. You'd go on a lad's holiday with Inoue. Same situation with Stephen Fulton. Who doesn't like Stephen Fulton? Then in the final addition to the list, we have Keyshawn Davis in the bad person tier. I think everyone's been turned off Keyshawn Davis by what he did a few months ago. His brother, Kelvin Davis, loses a fight to Nahir Albright. So in response, Keyshawn and his other brother, Keon Davis, jump Nahir Albright in his changing rooms after the fight. This was on the same card that Keyshawn was supposed to fight on, but he missed weight by 4 pounds intentionally. Sometimes you can tell when a fighter tries their best to make weight but fails. Like Joshua Franco when he missed weight versus Kazuto Ioka, or Gustavo Lemos when he missed weight versus Keyshawn Davis himself. Keyshawn actually looks in better shape than usual at the weigh-ins, so we can assume that Keyshawn missed weight intentionally, and that's going to do it for the video. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, goodbye.